What's happening?
Hear as I hear.
You want a dose of this right now? It's KD. I'm McDonald's with a blaze. Story trouble, let it out.
Hello ninjas and nincompoops, my name is TB Sky, and well, it's been 3 days, so here we are again. There is another animated short, and this time around, well, it's got Shen and Akali in it. It is the Ionia animated short, and it's, well, theoretically it's the last one, big air quotes, it's the last one, because this is the last of the regions that are left in Legends of Runeterra. They have all had their own animated short, and the only thing that could possibly cause another animated short to materialize was if, I don't know, Riot had plans to add new regions to Legends of Runeterra or something. Wouldn't that be something? But I haven't heard even anything at all about them wanting to do that at any point, especially not April 30th when the actual game launches. So this is probably the last one, and we're finally done doing this, and I can get back to doing other things. Ha 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 ha. Anyway, Shen and Akali are doing Shen and Akali stuff in Ionia, which means throwing things at Noxians, spirit lessons about spirit things from the spirit realm, big tree monster gets really angry when you cut off his hat, and Shen Mr. Miyagiing a little lesson about balance and stuff into Akali's head when she's trying desperately not to learn anything from him. Also, a fun little visual effect. So I don't think it's necessarily 100% clear that this is like the official look for the Spirit Realm, like that the Spirit Realm will always look like this in all League of Legends related media, but they've chosen to recycle it here, both as a callback to, well, that other iconic Akali animated short, and just to be a cool little bit of visualization that demonstrates the difference between the physical and the Spirit Realms, and we'll talk about that once we get there. Something else that's cool is all the smoke and spell effects in this short. Can you guess how they're animated? I can't. It'll be a big surprise when we find out later. Anyway, let's talk structure. Like all the other shorts, we open on the same steady shot of Ionia with a little title card telling us that we're in Ionia, and then we get the setup of our primary characters, with Shen asking a cryptic question like, what happens when an outsider disturbs the balance of this land, and Akali is being like, is this another riddle? And then Shen is like, haha, I'm going to say something cryptic because I am a kung fu master, and it won't make sense until later. And Akali sees the woodcutter and decides, hey, this seems like a problem that can be solved with violence, and Shen is like, but can it really be solved with violence? And then Akali tries solving the problem with violence, and it turns out, funnily enough, not to work so well, because she's trying to solve a problem with violence when as a kid. That's the problem, and you can't solve kid problems with violence. That's bad. I mean, it's a controversial statement, I know, but it's bad to do that. So Akali's like, well, this doesn't seem like a problem that can be solved with violence, and then Shen is like, well, what if there was an even bigger problem that also couldn't be solved with violence? And lo and behold, an even bigger problem that can't be solved with violence instantly materializes. Turns out, angry tree spirits do not appreciate non-consensual haircuts. And so we get the big monster reveal. And Akali, unfortunately, despite Shen taking the trouble to show her that she's going to be in a badass music video someday, decides that this is also a problem that should probably be solved with violence, with relatively limited success, to be honest. Now, with Kung Fu ninja violence turning out not to be a viable solution to the problem, obviously, in the best style of good Kung Fu movies, a third solution has to be found. In this case, a very non-violent solution, a solution that offers creation and a trade with the spirit world rather than attempting to enact some kind of domination over it. In this case, plant a seed from the tree that was cut down, and drip a little bit of magic spirit water on it that Akali creates out of this cool little tag. More cool spell effects, talk about those later. But, I don't know, things don't necessarily grow that fast, but fortunately, little tiny miracle there. Hey, the tree grew up real quick. Gee, I wonder how that happened. Is there someone around who maybe has the power to make trees grow up really fast? I don't know. I don't think I've seen such a person, but if you know of one, please call the number on screen right now and let the authorities know. So, my theory here is that Shen, very secretly, without saying anything, maybe helped Akali out just a little bit and bent the rules just a little bit because he saw that she had learned the lesson that he was trying to communicate, i.e., that when it comes to Ionia stuff, the important thing is to keep the balance and not just try and do, like, violence to everything and just hope that things work out, which, of course, is the thing that Akali has a tendency to want to prefer to do because she's a little bit annoyed with how slow the Kinku are and how much they don't actually take action when it's important to take action and stuff like that, which puts her on this collision course between Kinku and Navori / Brotherhood of Shadows values that makes her character interesting, but that only partly comes into play in this short. Here, Akali is still very much playing the part of Shen's student, even if she's like an annoyed teenage student who's rolling her eyes at her dad / older brother / Mr. Miyagi sensei. So anyway, let's get into the business of actually breaking down the animation of this thing, which is theoretically what we're here to do. So like the other ones, like I mentioned, we start on the steady establishing shot of the place. It's 2D, all of this is 2D illustration. We've talked about many of these things before, refer to previous videos if you are confused. And I just like the shot composition here a lot, because we have, of course, this is the scenery that's being established. This is the location that we need to understand that this is where we are. Navori province in, as the title card helpfully announces, Ionia. And can I just say I love the color expression of places like Ionia in League of Legends. Like, I really do like that when it comes to the magical first lands that are full of spirit magic and junk, they have really gone hard on the color palettes. They are to use the color palettes themselves to make the place seem kind of ethereal and dreamlike. Like, it would have been really easy to just like have a bunch of forests and say, hey, it's the forest land with forest stuff. But no, they actually do a lot of interesting stuff, especially in the concept art, perhaps more than in the actual game, to create really interesting color palettes and color ideas for Ionia that I appreciate. I wish that would show up a little bit more in the character designs of characters from Ionia, because they all tend to be kind of a little bit restrained in that respect, but whatever. We open on a really nice shot, by the way. Like, there's been a lot of these establishing shots before, but here we have our primary characters in the shot. And one of the things, this is a little tip and trick if you're ever doing like landscape painting and stuff like that, one of the best ways to show scale in an environment is to include humans. If you put a human on in your painting, in your illustration, it becomes easier for a human observer to like conceptualize what are the size relationships of this landscape. Put a tiny little human in there to make the whole environment seem bigger. Anyway, I just like this composition a lot, because we have this ridge that Shen and Akali are walking down, and we have this tree right here in the foreground, which tells us something about the spatial relationship between Akali and Shen and the background that they are walking into, which again, given that these are 2D illustrations that are being projected onto what's essentially a kind of skybox, is kind of important. Like, these are basically matte paintings, so if you want depth in the image, since you're not 3D modeling everything, using little compositional tricks like this one with putting a big tree in the foreground and this little cliff here, and having the middle ground be Shen and Akali walking down this path, and then having all of this stuff existing in the far distance and the background, that creates a good sense of scale and of depth for the image, which is the same thing that they were doing with all of the parallax scrolling that I was talking about in the previous shorts. That is so slightly less in evidence in this tracking shot right here. As you can see, like, there's not that much parallax going on there, but you can see that these things are moving closer to the camera a lot faster than more distant objects. Same principles apply. Anyway, character animation. And there's actually, I really like Shen's saunter. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but if you just look at the beginning here, there's already, in terms of character animation, if you knew absolutely nothing about these two characters, take a look at how they move and think about, okay, but how would you interpret their relationship just based on this? No sound, no anything. You don't know that they're Shen and Akali. You don't know the League of Legends universe. How much do you know about those two characters based on that interaction? What kind of interaction was that between people? Well, look at how Akali responds to Shen. Like, you get... like, you can see the attitude that she has towards him in that little... that's... is this another one of your lessons, old man? Like, with the head tilts and, like, the little swagger that she's got going on there. She's by far the more animated of the two, in the sense that, like, she's the one who makes more excessive body motions. And then take a look at Shen's response to her. Like, he does a little head bob as well, but when he says, a lesson perhaps, he kind of bows to her a little bit. He kind of nods at her and then walks off ahead. And again, absent any other context of who are these characters, what is their relationship, what would you interpret them as being, the master-student relationship, maybe not necessarily the first thing you think about, but the sensation that you get is that this guy knows something, and she is like questioning him or disbelieving him. She's not instantly buying in. She's not fawning over him. It's not like the professor and Heimerdinger in the previous short where the student was constantly, he was leaning in on his legs and he was looking at Heimerdinger and he was like, oh, professor, golly gee, that would be so swell. Like she doesn't have that attitude. Her attitude is more standoffish. Her attitude is a lot more hostile, but not hostile in the sense I want to kick your ass, but hostile in the sense of like, dad. Like that eye roll, that teenager, like, God, my dad is about to be embarrassing again. Teenager eye roll and the little sneer around the lips. And Shen's response to that, like this also comes through in their walking styles, which is why I like Shen's saunters so much, is that Akali walks forward like normally, but Shen, he has this, he just like, you can see him kind of strolling, rocking from side to side, arms behind his shoulders. He's not in any hurry to get anywhere whatsoever. He's calm, he's taking things in, he's in control. He understands the environment that he's in, and nothing in it threatens him. And that gives him also, like, that also gives them that different relationship. And you can really see it, again, without knowing any of the dialogue, when Shen's, he does the head nod forward, like, blah, 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 and walks off. Take a look at how Akali reacts to him. We stay on her. We don't follow him. We stay on her, and we see her being like, Like, you can see, like, she's like, wait, what? She's confused, and he seems to be certain. And again, all of that, combined with the dialogue, we know exactly what their relationship is, because Akali begins with this, is this another one of your riddles, old man? A test, perhaps. Like, that tells us everything we need to know in terms of the tropes that are at play, but the animation does so much of the storytelling as well. And I love the subtlety of Akali's facial expression here. Shen gives his little cryptic, a test perhaps, and then she's like, see how her eyebrows just like open up a little, like her expression that has been rather closed off. You can see like the eyes are a little bit narrow, the eyebrows are a little bit down. Both the eyes and the eyebrows open up just a bit when she's like, she lets her guard down for a second because she's like, wait, what? What's he talking about? And you can see she looks away from Shen for a second and looks off, like instead of looking at him, she looks off a little bit into the middle distance because now she's thinking. She's like, hang on, what does he mean by that? Because she's still the learner and he's still the teacher. And the subtlety of that little facial expression, am I up on 1440p again? No, I'm on 1080, but YouTube is just slow. Like, there's so much subtlety in that little transition of her from being like, dad, to, wait, what? So here's something that's a little bit interesting. This is one of the few times when a character has actually interacted with the background in a meaningful way, and in this case, it comes in the form of an axe hit. Because the background is a painted 2D illustration, the thing that I'm wondering is when do they replace this one with that one? Like, when is the shift? When is the switch? And I think it's here. There, I think they shift into the illustration where it has a little bit of a gash in it. And then the same thing. Here you can kind of see it a little bit clearer. Like, there, that's when they shift. You can even see, look there, there's a little bit of a tiny shadow up here. Poof, gone when the axe actually strikes because it's a different illustration. And it was illustrated a little bit differently. Anyway, completely inconsequential detail, but it's just a little thing I like. Another thing I like, when the axe, like, hits into the wood, we see the blood of the sap of the tree, but in this case, it's visually supposed to be kind of like blood. We're kind of supposed to understand that he's cutting down this tree, and the tree is bleeding because he's doing a bad thing that he's not supposed to do. But the second time the axe is retracted, I like that. I like that it literally pulls sap out, like, whoosh. Like, it's made a really ugly wound. And again, that's saunter. Where, again, you can see the difference in like, their attitudes, just, again, because Shen hasn't, like, he sees this, he doesn't react to it at all. It doesn't affect him. It doesn't touch him. He maintains the same pose, the same posture, the same attitude throughout. Akali, on the other hand, walks forward, and she's like, you can kind of see she does this, Noxians, ugh. And she's always more animated than him. Like, she always makes more motions, more movements than he does, because she's less certain. Like, she's less, I won't say she's insecure, but she's less secure. Shen is always completely certain. Like, he knows exactly what needs to happen. He has the wisdom. He is the master. She's the learner. She always makes more movement. Even when Akali is bringing out, like, her thing to try and murder a child, Shen is keeping that completely carefree little saunter, like, da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. Like he's walking along in the park, and here comes the best Akali expression in the whole thing. It's so good. Like, oh, relatable, isn't it? Isn't that just the most relatable thing? Like, she's inspecting her weapons, getting ready to do the thing, and then, with your steel? And how is that expression achieved? Well, two things. Two things happen exactly. So here, this is a relatively neutral expression. Like, she doesn't look angry or upset or particularly tense, but the eyebrows are a little bit down, the eyes are open a normal amount. Then, when Shen says his thing, eyebrows come down, and her eyes, like, you can see the upper lids of the eyes close down a little bit more and just narrow the entire profile of her eyes. And that's when we get... It's so good. It's like, you can just feel the frustration coming off her. It was like, he does this all the time. Anyway, again, the tree is bleeding. Like, normal trees, they do drip sap, but it's like, maybe not exactly that much. And also, how the hell did the kid, like, there's so many trees everywhere. Like, just tripping trees the whole place. So why is it that he sees the obviously glowing magic tree coming out of a rock in the middle of everything and decides, let's cut down that one, that's probably fine? I don't know. He's a dumb kid, he's made some stupid decisions in his life, and they're about to get a lot worse for him. Anyway, this is a very small thing. But you notice that little hesitation? Like, he hoists it up on his shoulder, and then he waits just a beat, and then he throws it. There. Up on the shoulder, wait, throw. That does two things. First of all, it allows the setup for this, like, badass ninja Akali appearance, where you can see she literally just pops into existence from one frame to another. But it allows her to do that ninja trope where, like, a thing blocks your view on the screen and then the ninja appears behind the thing. And then, oh, she's revealed, and all of a sudden she's there. I do love that we can just see the pop-in. It's like, poof! Sonic the Hedgehog! And the second thing is the acorns, the little things that are sitting on the branches there, they get just a moment to be in frame. It's not enough that anyone who's watching this for the first time is going to particularly notice. We are all going to be focused on this cool thing where Akali does the ninja stuff. And he somehow realizes, I'm not 100% sure, like, because he's still not looking at her, he just is, and then here, somehow he realizes that there's a ninja behind him. I guess he has very good hearing. And we get a bit of lovely animation that establishes, again, some power relationships. Remember how I talked about how Akali making no movements, rather, Shen making almost no movements, but Akali making a lot of movements establishes a power dynamic between them, that Shen is knowledgeable and in control and dominates, well, not dominates, but he's in control of the scene. He knows what he's doing. He knows what's going on. Same thing happens here. Akali is very motionless here in this shot compared to what the kid is doing, because when the kid realizes, it's like he's flailing and kind of almost falling over himself and running to get on top of the llama thing, whatever the hell it is. And again, that tells us that the kid is panicked, but Akali is calm and in control and knows what the hell she's doing. Unfortunately, she's about to realize what the hell she's doing a little bit too late as the kid gets on the llama and drives away. Didn't know she could do that with the thing, but it's very cool. And I'm surprised the kid doesn't die, because, like, the cart crashes on top of him, like, unambiguously. When he falls off here, that thing is going, like, that's going right on. I guess because the tray of the cart hit him mostly. He didn't get the full weight of the thing on him, but still, that's a nasty fall. Thank God she didn't murder a child. That would have been bad. Anyway, like in the previous shorts, smoke effects like these, dust effects, dust clouds and things like that, all hand animated, and you can see it, same as we've talked about, animated on 2s when everything else is animated on 1s. I do like this tumble over animation from the kid. Like, that's pretty good. Because what happens is, the cartwheel is destroyed, and this thing is no longer tied to the cart, so it runs off ahead, and so the the reins catch the kid around the back, woof, pull him into the spin, and he lands. And again, dust and smoke clouds, all hand animated. And whoop, with one spinning wheel, of course, the llama gets up and decides to wander off. And once again, they pull the same trick twice. Here, as the thing has just landed and the llama is about to stand up, no Akali. And as the llama gets out of the way, oh, suddenly Akali is there. But I'm not really that interested in Akali for this at this moment, because again, look at Shen. Just like, la-da-da, I'm just having a stroll in the park. La-da-da-dee, la-da-da-da. Completely unconcerned, just kind of sauntering ahead because he knows he'll get there when he needs to get there, and he's not bothered by it at all. And he is obviously like, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, please don't kill me! Which of course they're not going to do, because nothing about their body language suggests that they are threatening at all. And Shen, like I said, he's going to arrive exactly when he needs to, like a wizard. Just sauntering over like, oh, well. And that's when the real problem begins to present itself. The sap that has been set up, like we already saw, we saw from the first shot. Hey, sap is coming out of this tree. That's probably going to be important. And then we see here, the sap is still bleeding down. And here we see the consequences of the sap bleeding down a little bit too far. And again, the sap, I believe, is at least partly hand animated. I think it's probably a combination of 2D and 3D animation on the sap. I'm actually not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure the drips that flow down like this are hand animated, but the bits of it that are flowing down, I think that might be some sort of deformation filter or something, just to kind of make it easier. But the little droplets and stuff that flow down and flow into the thing, I'm reasonably sure are hand animated. And again, body language. Shen sees the thing first because he already knows it's going to happen. While Akali, like, she's looking at him. What the hell are you on about, old man? And he's like, well, take a look. And then, oh boy, raid boss activated. And some lovely particle effects here. So, the sand and dirt on the ground here is all some description of particle effect. And you can see, I think probably it's just working on a physics engine, like being told the object is moving such and such. Yeah, you can kind of see it here, how it, like, rather than flowing down over here, it's kind of bouncing on top of the thing. And then eventually it's falling down. It's a little bit, like, if you wanted it to be super, super accurate, you'd probably need to do a lot more manual work to make the sand fall off in a realistic, air quotes, manner. But for a shot like this, it's plenty, because you get that sense of, oh, it's like loose dirt and dust that's crumbling around the thing as it, like, throws chunks of earth up into the air. And I like the character design of this thing. I also like Akali's expression here, because, like, you can see that she doesn't know what this is. Like, she doesn't say, I don't know what this is, but you can see, like, the eyes widening and the eyebrows going up just a little bit. You can tell that she's like, Master Shen? What's that? What is it? Well, I haven't seen that before. Even more than the kid, who's, like, already terrified, but Akali is like, ooh, that's probably not good. I like that it has a hat. I think that's just cute. And again, confidence versus uncertainty. Akali is the learner. She doesn't know what's going on. Shen has already activated Batman vision, and is ready to steady her. So Akali is like, oh, that's bad. So she's unsteady. She's backing down. She's retreating a little bit from the thing as she's trying to figure out what's going on. And then Shen is like, hey, look what I can do. Matching eyes. He has activated Spirit Vision, and I mean, this character design is so good, isn't it? That's a really cool monster. Like, I've seen cooler monster designs from Ionia, but, like, I love the little, like, the tangle of roots and vines around the middle that sort of turn into veins and muscle fibers in its arms and legs, so you can kind of tell that it's a bunch of tree roots and stuff that have sort of congealed rock around themselves to act as like the skin of the thing. And so the tree roots act both as, like, blood vessels and as muscle fibers and, like, interior organs. It's a very cool design. And then we get Spirit Realm O vision popping up from behind. And it's conceptualized in terms of the way it moves, like in terms of the way the Spirit Realm behaves, as like the Spirit Realm vision behaves. It's conceptualized like water, rising from below in waves and valleys. And as it closes up over Akali's head, she reacts like you would if water was about to go over your head. By raising up her chin, trying to keep her nose above water as long as possible, and then finally sinking under, and turning into the KDA music video. And I think I really like that. I like that it's not just he touches her, and then she sees in Spirit Vision, he touches her, and then the Spirit Realm comes sort of flooding into her senses. Like, it sort of fills her up from below, rather than just being a filter that you apply over your eyes. It's like being submerged in a different realm of reality. Visually, that's really appealing, and it makes the Spirit Realm really cool and different from other, see things differently magic filters that you might get. Here we get one that sort of slowly floods the world, and that's the water-like nature of the Spirit Realm is emphasized even further when they apply like a wavy filter to the background matte paintings, so you can see that they also do the whole rippling as though in water thing. We see the seeds, or the acorns, or whatever the hell they are, glowing green, the color of life, like the color of healing, often in video games, telling us that, okay, they may be important, but there are other color trails as well. And here we see that little tether right there, which I thought was one of the coolest little things that they did, is that the tree golem spirit thing is tethered to the boy by anger. It's kind of like in Final Fantasy 12 and 14, I think, where there's those little lines that indicate where aggression is pointing towards which player. Kind of the same thing here. So they're I feel like they're kind of co-opting a little bit of MMO visual language to give a visual indicator, like that when you're in the Spirit Realm, you can see more than just like physical relationships. You can also see emotional relationships between things. You can see anger traveling from one thing to another. You can see tethers of strong feeling traveling from one thing to another. And another thing you can see is the ghost of the tree that was lost. It's still there. You can see the branches. You can see that, like, the twirling trunk that the tree had and the branches spreading up out into the world. The ghost of the tree is still on its head, which I just think is really cool. Anyway, Shen is trying to tell Akali that, hey, the balance must be restored, which she interprets to mean, let's murder the kid, or rather, let's let the tree murder the kid, which is maybe not necessarily what he's saying, but Akali isn't patient. She doesn't want to stop and listen. She wants to act. She wants to do things, and in this case, doing things means Kung Fu Ninja action! Woohoo! It's just the most inefficient thing. It's like, slash, how do you like that? And it just doesn't react or move or do anything. It's like, what are you gonna do with that tiny little thing? It's like, ha! I like that. Like, even visually, what she does to the tree golem thing, just, you can tell that it doesn't do a damn thing, that it doesn't change anything. And as the Spirit Realm retracts, by the way, it retracts the same way that it came in, as a wave of water suddenly draining out of the world, and Shen being like, please stop and listen to me be cryptic for 2 more seconds. But no, and then we get this cool shot. So notice the camera angle here. Where is the camera placed relative to Akali? It's not behind her shoulders, it's not on her eye level. It is way down low to the ground, with her kind of eating up the majority of the upper right part of the screen, which is a lovely composition because it basically has the kunai, or the kama, or whatever the hell this is, act as a kind of frame around her target, so that, like, we get this instant clear visual communication. This is a person running, she wants to do that to that. Like, all the necessary elements to understand the action are present in the frame, and the eye is being led into understanding that, oh, okay, there's the important thing, there's the important thing. So it's just a very nice composition. And the camera being really low to the ground lends an extra sense of speed. Imagine if instead of watching it from this perspective, we were seeing it from, like, way high up. Like, if we had the camera way high above things, and we were seeing Akali run towards this little thing, and they were both really small in frame, it would be a very different drama, in the sense that there really wouldn't be much drama. It would be like watching 2 ants running towards each other. Here, because we're in close on Akali, we're way down low, we get a lot of the sense of the speed and the camera shake from the handheld camera effect. as though we are holding a camera and we're very tiny and we're running right next to her. We get the sense both of Akali like being very fast and moving quickly, but also a sense of the scale of the thing that she's up against, especially once we get in close and it's like, oh, this is like Shadow of the Colossus stuff. Wababoom. And again, those lovely dust clouds. Like whoever animates the dust clouds at Studio Access, who I believe are still doing all of the shorts, my compliments to them because those are some really lovely dust clouds. So let's see. Do I spy with my little eye a bit of squash and stretch? I think I do. One thing that's annoying me about these shorts is that the squash and stretch tends to be covered up with motion blur, which is probably a way to make things like seem like they're a little bit less Looney Tunes cartoony than they need to be. But you can see here, Akali's heel is right down here, right? And then it hits. It only travels like a couple of centimeters, like she's practically standing on the thing already. But her leg gets like woink, boing, gets really long, and then it gets a little bit short. And then she lands and like bends at the knee. And so you can see the squash and stretch principle is applied both in the sense that her leg is literally getting stretched out, but also in the sense of she starts out small, then she lengthens herself, zip, and then she crushes back down into a small little ball. It's also just like applying the same visual effect as squash and stretch, and you can really see the squash and stretch here, what it does to her weapon as it like zoop, zooms down. And a lot of it, like I said, is being masked with motion blur, which kind of keeps you from noticing, I think. And then there's this shot where, again, talking about relative movement and what that conveys about control over a scene. The monster doesn't move. Like, it just... But Akali is doing this whole thing of, like, flying up into frame and, like, Hiya! And she's, like, somehow... I'm not 100% sure how she moves herself in the air so that she can land one foot on the thing and then bounce off. But she's doing all this, like, badass ninja stuff, and it's just like, I don't care. I am entirely unaffected by anything that you're doing. And I do think this animation here is a little bit, like in motion it works. In motion it works just fine. But looking at it frame by frame, you can see that there's these odd inconsistencies, like where she appears in frame like this. And then here, she just kind of stays there, and then all of a sudden she moves real quickly again. And I think that's about managing the pace of the swing. Like, I think this is a little charge up. Like, this is a little moment of tension to let the swing hit harder. And you can see here they're also doing doubling. You can see that the Kama Kunai, whatever, is being doubled. Which is an effect like straight out of cartooning, actually, like being used to emphasize the speed of the thing as she swings it. Try and notice it in motion, right? You catch that one little glimpse for a second of the multiple after images of the thing, and that helps sell, well, the power of the swing, even though, like, it's so hilariously ineffective. It's like, he doesn't even, he's just like looking at her like, what are you doing? Oh, it's a fly. Go away. Schmack. And again, the camera angle helps sell the scale and the size of the monster that she's fighting by keeping us, again, relatively low to the ground, looking up at the action. Like, the camera isn't flying with Akali, the camera isn't close in on everything. It's about showing the difference. Like, this thing is completely unaffected by anything that she does, and it's about to sweep her aside like it doesn't even give a damn. And Shen is like, well, guess I gotta do something about that. Spirit powers activate! And we get another lovely little hand-animated spell effects. You gotta love them. These are animated on ones, by the way. And they look amazing. Like, they look fantastic. Basically white with a blue glow applied to them, as far as I can tell. Matching the blue glow around his eyes. And then this. Sword just pops into existence. Foreshadowed a little bit by some lighting effects, but then pop! Sword! And then a little bit of that stuff is covered up by these spell effects that blind the screen just for a second. And then we get some combination, I think, yeah, of 2D and 3D generated effects. Because, like, all the smoke, as usual, is 2D. And I think these ripples right here are 2D as well. And then I think some of the effects up around the sword are probably 3D generated. And the bubble itself, I'm curious, like, because I feel like the ripples that, like, run around the edge of the thing down here are probably 2D hand animated, but the bubble itself has a lot of, like, you can see how it ripples around the edges, it expands and contracts, and that feels a little bit more like that was probably computer generated ultimately. Anyway, speaking of hand-drawn things versus computer-animated things, whoop, there's Shen. I'd say probably they animated him in 3D completely as normal, and then just basically masked out a bunch of his body, and gave it an outline around, like, various edges of the model. Maybe they hand-animated the bits of the model that are popping in. And you get this lovely, very smooth, like, you get the one leg appearing first because he needs something to land on. Like, imagine if they tried to land him on a leg that wasn't there yet. Would have looked terrible. So he lands, and he's a pirate for a bit. Arr! I am my own worst enemy! Arr! Until the other one comes out. And I do like the way that Shen handles his weight here, because he lands on the one leg, right? So when you land, you would expect him, like, to bend the knee a little bit, absorb the shock of the landing, and then straighten back up. But what the animator actually has him do is, like, the downwards momentum that's gonna make him kneel down anyway, they just use that to bring him down a little bit, because he's, again, taking the opportunity to teach Akali a lesson. So he comes down on the leg, and then as the other one materializes into the physical realm again, he, like, gets it out there just to give himself that extra leverage and stability, but he's more interested in bending down to talk to his student, to his apprentice. Which, again, is just a lovely little bit of character animation. I also love the little trails on bits of him as he fades into existence, and as his fingers appear. These little trails that follow. They're just a cool little visual effect. But I do love that, like, the priority is still on the relationship. That the thing is, like, he's gonna show up having protected her, but it's not like, oh, are you okay? He knows she's okay, but he still wants to, like, to tell her and teach her, like. So it's his hand on her shoulder that brings her up, and he's holding his hand for Akali. Look, all the things that the light touches shall one day. That's from The Lion King. But, like, this like. Touching her shoulder, trying to guide her vision, quite literally, through his arms. And then there's Akali, not listening, still not listening. Like, he's trying to, like, the touch is the guidance. He's trying to guide her, and she's like, no. Hands off, old man. And off she goes, without listening to him again, which he's like, fine. Like, I really love that little tiny gesture where it's like she's clearly tired of him doing that. It's like, ugh, stop it. And you get that just from the way that she's like, no. That he's done that a million times before, and she's sick of it. And she's not very interested in it. And again, look at Akali's posture in terms of how she's relating to the scene. Because she doesn't stand up, like, straight back up, chin out, like, confident pose when she gets up. When she gets up, she's kind of sloped forward, like, with her head. She's kind of had this, like, slightly defeated look about her. But also she's tense. And, like, she's distressed because the thing is gonna crush the boy, which is obviously not the outcome that she wants. And that comes across in the body language again, which we're, like, again, by contrast, Shen, chest up, like, straight back, chin forward, and hands behind his back again in that relaxed Mr. Miyagi pose once more. Do people even know who Mr. Miyagi is anymore? Is that a reference that just dates me as being very old? Probably. So, a little bit of lovely smoke bomb attack from Akali, and there's a tiny little thing I want to draw attention to is, as the smoke bomb explodes, the smoke is all yellowed, and then as it spreads out, and here again you can see those different rates of animation that I often talk about. Now, the smoke clouds are animated on twos, but the smoke clouds here are animated on one timing, and then the other smoke cloud is animated on a different timing. And you can see they kind of take turns to move, and that staggering of timing is a thing that's used in 2D animation to ensure that things don't run too much on clockwork, that they look dynamic, like their movements are independent of each other. Whereas if you have things, as I've talked about many times before, if everything is running on exactly the same timing, especially in 2D animation, sometimes it can end up looking a little bit mechanical. So there's a bunch of secondary motion that I quite like about Akali, because, like, she has this ridiculous anime haircut, obviously. Like, There's not... I'm reasonably sure you can't make hair do that, like, naturally without... Well, just, like, substantial hairspray or something. So, Akali, though, needs follow-through and secondary action in her movements. Like, she needs her hair to react to how she's moving, otherwise it's going to look like it's made of plastic or cardboard, which is something that affects a lot of 3D anime, is like the hair oftentimes just looks like it's plastic, because they don't... doing all the follow-through and the secondary actions is difficult. Here, I think it's probably... Some of it is automatically generated by some kind of physics engine. But you can also see, like, the way that they've handled it is they've given the strands a certain stickiness. Like, her hair, her ponytail stays on one side of the head. It doesn't flop around left to right, but the ends of the ponytail thing that she's got can flop around very, very loosely, giving the hair that sensation of being soft, of being actually made of, you know, soft hair and not anime plastic hair. Which is a difficult balance to strike at the best of times, by the way, of having the hair, like, stay in the iconic hairstyle shape that you need. The same thing with her bang that goes across her eyes there. Like, that one never falls down over her face to the side in a way that would, like, really distort the character design. It stays pretty locked in place, swept across and underneath the hanging bangs, and they're and the animator is constantly having to make those decisions about, like, when do I break the model, or rather, when do I go off model, when do I change some aspect of the character design because the movement requires it, and when do I make things stick very closely to being, like, the character design, the model that we want. And in terms of characters, especially anime-inspired characters, but just characters in general, having a particular hairstyle set in place can oftentimes be kind of an important part of that. Because, like, imagine if Akali's hair, after all that ninja motion, was completely disheveled and like, poking out in all directions. She would look less cool, but it could also cause problems in terms of, like, for example, here, we would like to be able to read her expression, at the very least, like, when her face is available to the camera. And if her hair is, like, all over her head, it's just going to be this big poofy mess of nothing, where you can't see, for example, here, that she's straining. Or you don't get that sense of urgency and fear as she's trying to free the boy from underneath the thing. And the same thing here. Like, here, when she has the moment of recognition that it's the acorns that are the solution to the problem, we need to be able to see her face pretty clearly, so the hair can't be all mussed and messed up. And that's an animation problem. That's something the animator has to tangle with, is how do we make the hair seem like it's still made of hair without messing up what the character design needs to do for the character and what we need in terms of the character's readability on screen. And that's something that applies in 2D animation as well, obviously, but in 3D it can often be especially difficult. And you can kind of see it here, like, as like Akali is trying to lift and she's putting all of her power into it, and then she collapses down rather suddenly, like, whoosh, her hair falls down, but her bang, like, the bangs on her forehead here, they fall down, but we're just gonna stay there. We're not gonna fall too far forward. Just hanging on there. And the animator is doing a good job of managing, like, the kinetic energy and the follow through of the hair's action to make it seem natural, even though from any realistic point of view, it's absolutely not. By the way, love the action. Okay, people are gonna make comments about this, but I love the action on Akali's chest here. Because, see, as she's straining, putting everything she has into trying to lift this heavy wagon, and again, how did it not kill the kid when it landed on top of him? Anyway, see that? See that, how the whole, like, it's like the whole chest almost, like, is straining and expanding against what she's trying to do, and I think it's actually breaking the model a little bit. Like, I think it's stretching the model a little bit beyond what's probably realistic, but it's in the service. You can also see that the neck is really stretching really, really far and getting very long, but it's all in service of really selling the idea that she's, like, heaving this thing with all the strength in her body, and it's just not moving at all. Ugh. And then she collapses back down. And again, the expressiveness on her face is really quite good. Like, again, I've had my criticisms of the expressiveness of some of the characters here, but Akali has some great visual gestures. Like here, like that little... what the hell am I gonna do? That little visual gesture when she looks towards the thing, then back down, and then over is like, oh, this thing is really close now, and then her head snaps around. Like, the head movement's communicating her state of mind all the time. That, like, even when she's kind of here and she's kind of like, oh, god damn it, it's impossible to move, she's keeping an eye on it, looking at it, looking around. And here again, they're using bokeh, or rather, they're using depth of field. Because here, you see the acorns are out of focus, Akali is in focus. When she notices the acorns, she goes out of focus, they come into focus. So without making a camera movement, without changing the composition, you can lead the viewer's eye to go, oh, okay, we're not focusing. Ah, there's the thing we're focusing on. Instantly, like, your own eyes follow the focus of the scene. And you're like, oh, right, I see. Lots of good gestures with the eyes here. There, like, you saw that little thinking wiggle. Like, she sees the acorn there, and then notice you see that little tiny wiggle left to right. Because even though she's focused on it, you can also see that her mind is still working. She's still thinking, okay, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? How do we do this? And then she realizes, and the realization comes again, subtle movement. The eyebrows open up the face, like they have that little, they go down just a little tiny bit and then up. And there's both, like, and there's this moment of realization, but also tension evaporates from her face when she realizes what it is that she has to do. And I do like, even when she's desperately trying to carve out a trench to plant this goddamn thing in, she still can't help but twirl her knife as she brings it up. She still can't help but do a little ninja move, like... One thing that sometimes bothers me about the way female characters are animated, and it's only occasional, but it's sometimes there when you have a female character who's like attractive, who's meant to be hot, or cute, or somehow in any other way be appealing to the audience. Sometimes you can see the animator being reluctant to put them in certain poses, not necessarily provocative poses, but poses that are like unappealing. Scrabbling or desperate, and one of those kinds of poses is like the stuff you have here, where she's like kind of hunched over, and like the hair is falling in her face. And again, by the way, notice how here the hair is being used to give her that manic energy, where she's like desperately trying to do the thing. This is like a very hunched over, like bent at the midriff. Like, it's not a hot pose. Like, it's not a pose that showcases the character's attractiveness particularly. Sometimes in animation, animators are unwilling to let female characters do that kind of thing. But with Akali, like, there is a utilitarianism to the way that she moves and the way that she's animated that feels like it's more about how would the character move than how will the character look and how will the character appeal to the audience. That I appreciate it when I see it. It's not a huge deal, it's just a little thing. Yeah, I think this is like a series of 2D images that are just being like layered on top of the ground, basically, as Akali's dagger pops it into existence. This is not an animation mistake of any kind, by the way. This is just how you do it. You can kind of see here, like there, you can see that we shift from one 2D image to another, and then probably just like a dynamic reveal of the long trench afterwards. Yeah, something like that. It's probably 4 or 5 2D images that are being progressively revealed as the dagger slices a little wound in the earth there. But I do like Akali is like, plant the damn thing, but she's keeping an eye on the monster. More like it's like her face is towards the monster, and then her eye darts down. Plant it. I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm keeping an eye on it. What? And then once he doesn't do it, you can see she's like, God damn it, just do it! Now you can see her, like, her attention being like staying on the damn thing, because she's constantly like, I need to know what that thing is doing so I can do something about it. And she doesn't let her attention actually go to the boy until it's like, God damn it, just do it, you dumbass. And I think it's the same thing here. I don't know if this is interesting to anyone else, but it's interesting to me. I think it's the same thing when the boy covers up the seed. Yeah, I think it's just like a series of 2D images that they're progressively layering over on top. Because you can see he's not really moving any soil around as such. He's just kind of wiggling his hands, and as he wiggles his hands, the hole gets filled in. Like so. And then we get this lovely motion. And I quite like that. Like that has a nice flow to it, I think. Because you can always kind of see that, like, yeah, there. See how the arm, like the elbow leads in and down, so you get this curving, flowing motion of her hand as it, like the tail on the hand then whips up to reveal the card itself, which has a monkey on it. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. I don't know if anything to do with, like, Wukong or whatever. Probably not, but they do like to hide those kinds of Easter eggs. And then again, hand animated as the thing is consumed to create a bit of water on her hand. Hand animated flames, foof. As the card itself is probably just 3D faded out of existence, really. And I do like, because she knows here that she has to concentrate in order to make the thing happen, but her voiceover in the actual scene is... Work, damn it! Work, damn it! And that too comes across in like, yeah, chanting magic words, blah, 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 and then it's like, loses patience. Work, damn it! And it responds, which I like. And then more hand-animated water, I believe? It certainly looks like it to me. And then an excellent use of tension and anticipation, because this is why I mentioned Shadow of the Colossus a little bit earlier, is because that's how this thing is moving. This thing moves, like, you could have the thing move a lot faster, but in order to visually communicate how big and heavy it is, you intentionally make the movements look really slow and plodding, so you can see that it begins to lift its arm, like here. Here's when it begins to lift its arm, and you can see the shoulder goes up and the arm follows, but this thing, like, just stays down here forever, slowly getting dragged up into the air as the thing rears, like... And that's the thing that makes it look big and heavy and dangerous and imposing, is that it moves with this enormous heft and slowness that creates that sense of danger. And of course, in terms of the storytelling, this is also like, this is well, basically it's the all is lost moment of the narrative of the thing, which is a typical thing in a 3-act structure. You'll have various things that happen at certain points in the story, and there's usually almost always in a 3-act structure an all is lost moment, like the hero's lowest moment where all seems lost. In Star Wars, for example, this is when the Emperor is torturing Luke with the Force lightning in the throne room, and Luke is, like, just about to die. That is like the all is lost moment when Darth Vader seems like he's not going to do anything about his son being murdered. And then, of course, Anakin Skywalker does do something about his son being murdered, and we get this save at the last moment. The tension is released. There's this moment of catharsis. Catharsis. That's spelled with an S, not a TH. But that works. Like, that release of tension works because this shot spends so long building. Oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Boom! There we go. That's why the shot works, is because this thing doesn't move fast. We have this slow buildup of, oh god, 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 oh, we're saved! Woof. As we go back to KDA vision. With more, like, I really like the shape language of this spirit energy explosion thing. It too is hand animated, because of course it is. But look at the way it's conceptualized. It's almost liquid in the way that it moves, with, like, these tendrils kind of oscillating on the side of it, which I think is a really nice choice of aesthetic for like life energy that's bursting into existence. And notice, right as the life energy of the tree gets activated, that's when this tether of anger is changed to a green tether of whatever that is, like love, kindness, caring, compassion, whatever it may be. And of course, again, Shen keeping the same pose that he's had for 99% of this whole damn thing, watching the thing happen like he knew it would, because he's Mr. Miyagi and he always has all the answers, etc., kung fu wisdom and stuff. And I do like that. You get the sense that this arm was coming down at 1,000,000 miles an hour with a hell of a lot of force, and it was stopped on a dime, like instantly stopped, so suddenly that it left a shockwave in the air, almost, which I really like. And I do love the characterization, like, I do love the characterization detail about Akali is, like, when nothing else works, her first reaction is still to protect the child, which is, like, this is a classic hero thing, but I like that it's there, that she doesn't for a second have an instinct to dodge, not even for a moment. It's not even on her mind. It's not even an option that she considers. It's just, nope, must protect baby. Which is because she's a good guy. But it works. I like the way that the giant thing is animated, especially its eye, because its eye is really the only bit of character expression that it has. So take a look at how that works when Akali, well, does this ridiculously unuseful thing to it. You see that little, like, as she shows up in its field of view, is like, oh, what is that thing? And it sort of briefly follows her with its eye, and then sweeps her aside because she's not important anymore, or she's not important at all, it doesn't care about her. And that follows into when it gets a new obsession. Now, we only care about tree branch, must protect little sapling. And so that's the only thing that its eye is focused on, and its entire body language is focused around it as well. You can see, like, it takes basically the same stance over the sapling that Akali has over the boy. Like, this back arching over it, creating a shelter kind of posture. And I just like that it's single-minded, like, attention, like, this is the only thing in the world that matters to it right now, is completely communicated, and you can even see it in the little, like, the eye has these little wiggles back and forth. Like, there, and there, and there, and there. Like, these little wick, back and forth, but all of it completely focused and centered on just the sapling. As the boy tries to run away without getting his lesson. He has to have his lesson. The lesson is important. So take a look at what happens with his shoulders and with his torso as he gets caught. You can see how that forward momentum he has built up gets transferred into the arms, and they shoot forward. And it's a very sort of Looney Tunesy. But again, the body language of the characters communicate what exactly, like, Akali's intentions here is like, no you don't, you little but it's not angry. Like, you can see it in both in her expression, but also just in her body language. It's like, it's not cannot let enemy escape. It's that, whoop, hang on a sec, kid. It's like an older sister catching a little brother before he runs off. And that comes through in her body language as well, when she's like giving him the lesson. She doesn't hold on to him. Like, she doesn't like pin him down or anything. She's just stopped him from running away. Pay attention, kid. And as she hands the axe back, she leans backwards. You see that? That little lean. Because it's not aggressive. It's not, this is the lesson, you have to learn it. It's not a drill sergeant trying to get a cadet to do what she wants. It's just, hey, you hurt this land, it hurts you back. It's a simple statement of fact without hostility. And again, the body language is a big part of selling that, she's not acting with any kind of hostility towards the kid. She's not acting with, like, mother-like fawning either. There's no protectiveness left, really. Like, none of that must protect baby that she does when she's with the boy on the ground. But more like, you need to know this, kid. And then Shen, of course, demonstrates his new ultimate, which will be coming to the game very soon, making trees grow on the ground somehow. And this has fascinated me a little bit because... yeah, let's have a look at that. And the interesting thing is, like, when you stop and look at it in slow motion, it doesn't actually look that good, in my opinion. Like, it looks really kind of like early 90s CGI weird. Like, it looks too smooth and too perfect somehow. But when you see it in motion... it works perfectly. Especially because, like, early 90s CGI could never do this much. And I wonder what techniques exactly they used to make that happen. Because I don't think it's 3D animated. I think it is... well, it could be, actually. Like, otherwise, how would they do the... so... okay, so it might be... I'm guessing here, but I think it might be 3D models with 2D images as textures projected onto them, and then something along those lines. It was probably quite work intensive to get it to work, because in order for this to believably look like it's a tree growing, you do have to keep that sense of, you can see them doing it here, like with branches poking out, and like the shape language of the trunk that's left behind has to look tree-like in order for this thing to work. I'm not 100% sure how they made that, but I'd be curious to know. And here again, that big sisterly attitude. Akali sees the boy being amazed by the thing that's happening, and she can't help but smile. Like, oh, he's appreciating nature. Good boy. And I do like the face and facial construction of Akali. Is something that I liked about Jinx as well, is that unlike a lot of League of Legends characters, honestly, especially if they're women, she has some shape to her face. Like, you can see that she has cheekbones. You can see that there are lines on her face, especially here, when she smiles, you can see that creases and deforms the skin around the corner of her lips, which is lovely. Like, it gives her face a little bit more personality than the blank anime girl faces that I'm getting tired of seeing in League of Legends at this point. So it's nice to see, like, you can see the cheekbone, you can see the construction of the bone and the muscle underneath much more visibly, which makes her feel more human. Like, it makes her look more like a person to me, rather than just, an archetype. And balance is restored, all is well, and we get this gorgeous shot. Like, this is... they really got something out of the god rays. They're, like, projecting these light rays through... I guess just through holes in the 2D image that they painted, which works really well. But it's gorgeous. Like, it looks absolutely brilliant. I'd take that as a wallpaper. I thought desktop, but no, wallpaper on my desktop. I would take that because it looks very nice. And yeah, I think that's about it. So if you've enjoyed this extended ramble about animation and League of Legends and Tales of Runeterra and all that stuff, well, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, because there's probably going to be another one in like a few days. Outside of that, I have a Patreon, I have a merchandise store, and I have a tip jar. If you want to use them, I would be very grateful for the help, and if not, that's completely okay as well. But at the end of my videos, I do try to encourage people to, generally speaking, support the content that they love with direct support, whatever you can, whenever you can. And the reason why is because, well, partly because of the current pandemic thing that's happening, advertisement rates on platforms like YouTube are plummeting. It hasn't affected me too badly yet, but some channels have lost up to as much as 50% of their revenue, and some people getting into some quite desperate situations. So if you have a content creator whose work you enjoy, especially smaller ones, please consider supporting them directly with anything you can, whenever you can, because even that small $1 donation can be literally the same as thousands and thousands of views on a video. It matters so much more than you think. Right, last thing I have to advertise is my second channel. There's a Final Fantasy VII Remake playthrough going up over there in 1-hour episodes right now, and I have a video about Final Fantasy VII Remake coming to this channel as well. So if you go over there and check that out to see and know what it is that I'm going to be talking about in that one. Also, a playthrough of Final Fantasy VIII is ongoing over there, with occasional Majora's Mask interrupting it. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe to that as well. I think that's it. I think I have said all of the things, which means it's now time to say thank you very much for watching, and please remember to wash your hands.